Go for CJ.
Hey, CJ, it's Scott. Do you fancy doing some podcasting?
No, not really.
But we haven't done the podcast since April.
I know, it's awesome, isn't it?
I don't think so. I think we have a responsibility to our listeners.
I know, I thought that's why we weren't doing it.
I must now.
You're clearly not going to let it go. Yeah, all right, sounds like a great idea. I can't think of anything I'd rather be doing.
Okay.
You are right, though. Hang on, sorry, where am I up to? You are right, though, full stop. Yes, it is a good example of subjective versus biological age in relation to aging, and we should tie it back to our original episode podcasts. Who writes this shit?
This is me.
And this is me.
And welcome to...
What's my age again?
At least you got that right.
It's been a while. I'm surprised I remembered.
Yeah. We're sorry about that, listeners. Our last podcast. Yeah, sorry, we're back. Our last podcast was in April. It doesn't seem like that long ago for us, and the PTSD is still there. But
the fact that the last episode was death part 1. there is a possibility that there's some people out there who went, oh fuck, maybe they died.
Well, the crazy part is we've actually recorded death part 2, and I don't think either of us have the stamina to actually edit it at the moment. So we're doing this in between episode because we went on the trip, and we even recorded a whole bunch of stuff for the trip, but it took so long to get through it. We've realised that was a terrible way. We were just going through it chronologically, and it just was impossible to do. So we've now narrowed it down to a way that might make it doable and even appropriate for our podcast.
Yes. If you're interested in listening to to about 5.5 hours of drunken ramblings and reminiscing of a holiday, feel free to message us, and we'll send you the raw tape.
And you can edit it for us. Yes. So anyway, we've got a lot to talk about. I think we went on a tour of Europe. We went on a bus tour. I won't say the name of the company because we're going to say a few things about that company that may not be complimentary, and we don't want to get sued. But it was interesting, to say the least. It was, in the end, the whole thing I thought was definitely worthwhile. But for the reasons we'll touch on when we start talking about this, I am ever so glad that you decided to come with me, because the original plan was me going by myself. And if I went on a trip to Europe with those people without anybody to talk to, I may have it may have been death part 2. I'm not sure.
Well, I was saying that it would have been a great marketing opportunity for the podcast.
Yeah. So anyway, we need to start off in our traditional manner, which is what's our beer again?
I like beer because it is good. I drink beer because I should. If there was a song to sing, I sing it and beer you bring. I drink beer when I am sad, because the beer, it makes me glad. Now there's nothing left to say, so let's go drink beer.
So CJ, what's your beer again?
My beer again is a Garage Project Cherry Bomb.
Okay.
Which you may recognise the logo from the fridge magnet that I've got and the poster.
Okay, I did actually. I couldn't have said where I saw the logo, but I've definitely seen that logo, so that would be where.
And it's from a brewery called Garage Project, which is a Wellington brewery, one of my favourite breweries, especially now that Deeds is closed. Don't get me started on that. So it's a New Zealand brewery in Wellington. Quite like it. Cherry Bomb was one of my favourite beers. Hasn't been around for ages, and I discovered it in the shop the other day.
Okay.
The thing on the side, the words, It's good the professionalism hasn't changed. Cherry bomb. Hello, world. It's it's all in caps for some reason. Hello, world. It's Cherry Bomb Imperial Porter, a complex, decadent dessert beer spiked with sour cherries and cacao nibs. The finished beer has a rich ebony hue with a pronounced bittersweet dark chocolate and ripe tart cherry character. Sounds like a woman I used to go out with. Warning, may contain hints of Stone Age love. I'm not sure whether that means somebody's jerking off into it. But...
Jesus.
Garage Project, we're here to try something new. If you're a lawyer and you'd like to represent us in a defamation case against Garage Project, please feel free to contact us at the Old Folks Home. We're here to try...
Does it talk about its rich, creamy texture?
No. We're here to try something new just like you. We're here to try something new just like you. I don't know if they're saying we're here to try you. 9% alcohol is the can opening.
Right, okay.
Sounded like a can opening. Pour. Tastes a bit more sour than I remember it. So I don't mind a bit of a kind of a soury, portery thing, but I don't remember it being quite as sour. But it's quite nice. Good job, Garage Project.
Okay. Excellent. See, I thought when you started to read the side of the can, you were going to say, "Hello, world. I'm your wild girl. I'm your cherry bomb."
Not unless somebody's paying me.
Yes.
Okay, Scott, what's your beer again?
Okay, well, my beer again is a beer again, because this is a beer I have drunk before on the podcast, but it's rapidly become one that I quite like and will buy again. So it's a Mountain Culture Scenic Route Session Hazy. So it's a
double OT or
ROUTE.
Okay.
Route. Scenic Route.
Right.
If you're an American.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a refreshing lighter option that's packed with the same juicy flavors and aromas of many of our IPAs. Finishing dry, this beer is brewed using entirely mosaic hops in the whirlpool during active fermentation and in the dry hop and in the dry hop to extract juicy flavors of citrus and with floral undertones. Scenic Route Session Hazy low-key ABV is perfect for you when you want to slow down and take in the view. So it's 5.2, so it's not like a massive...
it's not that
elephant
low.
beer. No, it's not crazy low. But yeah, I just enjoy it. It isn't like I normally try to buy something interesting nowadays rather than the early days of the podcast when I was buying things like Qingdao. But
and Aldi.
Aldi beer. So I have been repeating myself, and I'm sorry, but it's definitely worth a taste.
Yeah, okay.
And if you missed out on me opening the can and pouring, it's because I forgot that's what we used to do. Hey, CJ, I've been playing with some music generation software, and I've made an ad for my book. Have a listen.
Greek sages scribbling in the sand, philosophy and justice hand in hand. Pyramids rise, reaching for the skies, light bulb moments in the blink of an eye. From the dawn of time to the Romans' reign, innovations came and they paved the way. Light bulb moments in human history. History's a place to be. Light bulb moments in human history. From Cape to Colosseum, can't you see? Cleopatra with an asp in her hand. Confucius says that's not very grand. Mayan priests wanna steal your heart. Assyrians driving in a war car. From the dawn of time to to the Romans' reign. Innovations came and they paved the way. Light bulb moments in human history. History is the place to be. Light bulb moments in human history. From Cape to Colosseum, can't you see?
Now available on audiobook from Spotify or Audible. So the bus tour. Now, I'm not normally a bus tour kind of person, although,
No, we did a bus tour.
but that was 40 years ago.
True. Yeah, we did 2 bus tours.
Yeah, true. Adelaide in the USA. Now, I figured this time I'd have to do it by myself, but I also wanted to spend a bit of time with humans.
And yet you invited me.
Well, that's... I didn't invite you. That's okay. The original idea was I was going by myself, and I decided I'd go on a tour because that way I get to actually be with other humans and maybe it would be okay. And then not that long after, I was telling you about it, and you went,
I've got no interest in that at all. And you begged me to come with you, I think. That's how I remember it. And I had to put off a whole bunch of exciting things that I was doing to be able to free up my busy schedule to force myself to come along.
okay, at this point, listeners, I injected CJ with sodium pentothal. Now, what's the real answer, CJ?
I think I said something like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds interesting. Can I glom along on that?" Actually, no, it was pretty close to that, but it was another friend of mine had gone on holidays about 3 months before you mentioned it. And I was looking at all these photos on Facebook. And then when you said what you were doing, and I thought, I'm going to be so pissed off because I know your penchant for putting every fucking thing in the world on Facebook. Just being inundated by photos of you on holidays. Yes. So it inspired me to say, hey, mister, can I come too?
Can I spend thousands of dollars just so that I don't have FOMO?
Yeah. In hindsight, I probably could have just turned Facebook off, but it would have been much cheaper.
Anyway, I'm glad you came along in the end because the tour wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. It ended up being kind of an old person's tour of Europe. I thought there would be a bigger range of ages on there. It turned out to be a whole bunch of people my age and maybe slightly older.
Mm-hmm.
And they were people who didn't really see the world the way I saw it, nor I think the way you saw it either.
I think it was it was almost like we'd walked into a living experiment of subjective age versus biological age.
Yeah, it really was. Because, I mean, we were not dissimilar ages to them, but we had a totally different outlook on life to what they had. Now, a lot of the people were American. There were a good percentage of those Americans who identified quite vociferously as Trump supporters, which probably tells you everything you need to know.
Well, I think using words like vociferously in relation to a Trump supporter is just for other people who might not understand what you're saying. What would that mean?
Loudly and verbally.
Okay, right. I knew that.
Okay, yeah. So they were very open about it. They didn't hide the fact they were out and proud Trump supporters.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. Actually, there is, but
there is. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I digress. So that this tour for us was a real sort of like a field trip to examine a range of different people of a certain age.
Yeah, and their attitudes towards aging and how they are as a result of their environment. I wonder if that means we can claim this on tax.
It'd be great if we could, but I think we'd have to have actually made some money out of the podcast.
It depends on what kind of accountant you've got. If you're a dodgy accountant and would like to see if we can claim this on tax, feel free to contact us at theoldfolkshome@gmail.com.
So anyway, yeah, it certainly wasn't planned that way. And I have to say, we didn't say to people that we were podcasters with a podcast about aging and we would like to interview you about your attitudes towards aging. We didn't do that.
Because we were undercover.
We were undercover. We were just absolutely checking things out as we went. And I think they would have not been as real if we had told them what we were doing.
No, I'm not sure that most of them were real.
Where do we go from here? It was a pretty bog standard European tour. Went London, Paris, Lucerne, Venice, Florence, then Rome. So we had a bus driver and we had a tour director. And I think we'll call George by his name. I mean, there's millions of Georges. That's not going to out anybody.
I was going to go with something more clever like Ringo.
No, I think let's go with George. That's just going to get too confusing, and it doesn't matter. So George was our tour director. He had this weird voice. He sounded
like Gene Simmons. He sounded a bit like Gene Simmons to me. And the fact that he kept spitting blood on me as well.
Don't think he did that.
Not when you were around.
George was from Greece, and there was no real sort of explanation for why he sounded the way he did.
No.
He had this kind of deep, sort of interesting voice that sort of had that kind of American twang, but also something exotic, I suppose, about it. Yeah. But anyway, most of the time he seemed to talk about toilets.
True. Actually, in hindsight, here's what kind of clued me into the fact that the people who were on the tour were kind of leaning more towards the older range. We left the hotel and arrived at the station, and everyone applauded. That's his job. He drove through the streets from the hotel to the train station. That's what he gets paid for. That's he makes his living doing this. Why is he getting a round of applause? It's not like we went through some kind of crazy, I can't believe we survived that.
Yeah. So anyway, we've arrived at St. Pancras station to get on the Eurostar to catch the train into France. So we did have to show our passports and all that.
It's essentially the equivalent of when you travel overseas and you go to the airport and you go through the border control thing and then you walk into the terminal and there's all the duty-free shit.
Exactly.
But it's a train.
Yeah, but it's a train. But one of the ladies who we nicknamed Cruella de Vil.
I think you nicknamed her that, to be honest. I just went along with it because I succumb to peer pressure really easily. Well, I drink too much.
Okay, so I nicknamed her Cruella de Vil for reasons that may become obvious as we go along. But what did you overhear her saying?
So, one of the other things that clued me into the focus of this tour was towards people who are on a kind of higher age range, was that George would repeat the same thing over and over and over again. So on the 25-minute trip from the hotel to St. Pancras station,
St. Pancras,
he essentially had 7 minutes worth of information that he just kept repeating over and over, including but not limited to when we get to the station, there'll be I don't know what I'm trying to do from an accent perspective there, but I'm not even going to bother because it's not working. He said, when we get to the station, there'll be turnstile things to go through to get to the passport control. There'll be barcodes there, so just scan the barcode. Hands up who's seen a barcode before.
Yeah.
So he said at least 3 times, if you've got American dollars, don't change them at St. Pancras because they'll charge you to change from US dollars to pounds and then from pounds to euros. So you'll get double commission payment on it. So he said that 3 times. One of the things that I learned about Cruella through the entire trip was she had very little ability to listen. And then chose to blame any mistakes that she made because she didn't listen on the person who she said didn't tell her. So we're inside. We go through border control. We're inside the station in London, waiting for the train. She says, "I'm going to go and get my money changed." George, I was very impressed that he didn't go, "What the fuck is wrong with you? How many times do I need to tell you?" Said quite quietly, "Oh, actually, you'd be better off not doing it here because they'll charge you to go from pound to US dollars, pounds to euros, you get double cookie. To which Corella's response was, "What do you mean we get double charged? Aren't we in Italy now?"
Which is wrong on 2 counts.
Yeah. Fitzgeorge impressed me even more by not going, "What?" It made me go, "You've seen it. You've literally seen everything.
Yeah.
You may or may not have come across this before, but you've seen everything, and so you've just taken this on the chin and gone, yep, there's another one." So he went, "No, we're not. We're in England, and we're traveling to France." So in her defense is that she thought when we went through border control that meant we were in France, but then she got France mixed up with Italy.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of, it's not a big defense on her part, but
No.
it's
But
the
I
best
actually
I can
thought we were
muster.
in some special diplomatic zone or something.
Yeah.
Like when you go into a embassy and you're suddenly in someone's country. Yep, that was another thing.
Yeah,
So no,
yeah.
that
An
wasn't
embassy with trains and duty free.
yeah. So one of the other things that George taught us very early on, forget any kind of tourist information that he may have passed on to us, was the importance of knowing where your next toilet stop was coming from. His biggest job was to tell us where we were going to do our next job.
For those listeners who are going, hang on a second, what kind of bloke were you on, like a minibus or something, or out of Tarago? Don't they have toilets on these buses?
No.
No, we're in a proper bus, but for reasons that we never really understood, you weren't allowed to use the toilet. It was for emergencies only.
It was a very high bar for an emergency.
Yeah, I think it was like, we'll need a mop and bucket unless I get to use the toilet now.
And even then, they had to stop the bus. You couldn't use the toilet while the bus was moving.
Mm.
So you had to let George know that you wanted to use the toilet, get the key off George in mid journey. Then they would pull the bus over, and everyone would know that you were going to the bathroom. And then you would have to go to the bathroom while everyone in the entire bus is sitting there waiting for you to come out of the bus so the tour can continue.
Mm.
Well, only one person did this. Only one person actually
was brave enough to. George was kind of like, I'm not angry, I'm disappointed.
I mean, they did structure the tour so that I don't think you went for more than
2 hours was the maximum.
Maximum, absolute maximum.
I will admit that there's a couple of times that I was kind of thinking maybe I should empty out this water bottle.
Because I wouldn't dare ask George to stop the bus and let you into the bathroom.
Yeah. But then the only reason I didn't was because I thought I'm just going to end up in a vicious circle here.
Certainly, there was lots of bus stops for lots of toilet stops, I should say, and the other side of going to the bathroom in Europe is it costs you in some way. There's no such thing as a free pee in Europe. Now, most of the time, you're stopping at like a truck stop or some kind of place like that. And what's the go there, CJ?
So the go is you would go. So you go and stand in a queue for 20 minutes. Actually, no, truck stops I think were free.
No, you had to pay most of them.
Do they?
Yeah.
No, okay.
But yeah, there was a lot of paying for toilets. There may have been a few that were free, but when you went to those ones, you were usually paying a lot for food or something. Like there's nothing. So they got one way or another. They got their pound of flesh out of you, but you were paying.
Well, I don't know what. Maybe you should consult a doctor.
But you'd pay up to €2 to use the toilet.
Yeah, which is like when you do the exchange rate for us is like $4.
Yeah.
Like $4 for a piss. Jesus Christ! I was weighing up what the fine was going to be worth every now and then.
And then there were other toilet stops where they didn't charge you, but they were basically taking you into a shop where they would corral you in for a demonstration, either of something like glass blowing or leather making or something. And they would sort of herd you through like a maze of merchandise.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of if somebody said to you, hey, let's go and see a meatball demonstration at IKEA. and they take you in and go, these are meatballs. Let's go and have a look inside IKEA now. And then you're stuck there. You got to make your way through until you can work out how to get out the other end. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. And then you have to get through all the way through the other end to get to the bathroom usually. So you know, at some point you're thinking, I might just buy an €800 leather jacket just so I can go to the bathroom. I think it's common practice. I've told a few people about that, and they've done different tours with different companies, and they've gone, yeah, they all do that.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's unusual, but it's really annoying.
I will say though, the glass blowing one, the guy, he'd obviously done it so many times that he did it quite well.
Yeah.
Like it was a reasonably good show.
Well, that one had two parts to it, though, because that had the actual glass blowing, which was interesting. Then they herded you into the shop where they then did like an infomercial. How much would you pay for this glass set? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd pay about $7 for that.
Well, it's actually €5,000. But today you can have it for €1,500.
And we'll ship it free. Fucking €1,500, you want to be delivering it personally.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess I think I will probably wind up this section on toilets with the other one that George flagged this very early on in the tour, that there was a place we were going to go to in Venice where it was, and I quote George directly, "Oui, no caca." So you could only urinate. There was no defecation allowed at this particular place, and there was a lady there who was in charge of the bathrooms who was very stringent on the whole "oui, no caca" rule. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately for us, we paid for that tour, then ended up missing it. So, because we're idiots.
Well, as it turns out, this is one of the things that I find interesting about tours. Sometimes find things that you've got planned don't work out, and what ends up happening instead is sometimes better than what you had planned.
Yes.
So, for listeners, here's how this one worked. We'd booked on this tour to go and see glass blowing or some other shit in Venice.
Well, I think we both thought it was glass blowing, but it ended up being something else.
Oh, so I missed out then. Neither of us really liked Venice.
No.
Sorry, Venice. I'm prepared to go on record to say I hadn't really thought about it, but I was surprised that it wasn't just rivers. I don't know. I think I had in the back of my mind this image of you had to go everywhere via a boat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it's essentially canals with footpaths around, so you can walk everywhere. So it's like living next to a river.
Or a drain.
Yeah. It wasn't really that exciting. There's a billion people there. The whole thing was very, very kind of touristy and disappointing. Anyway, so we booked to go on this tour. George said, everybody fuck off, do your own thing, meet back here for the tour at dock number 3. Scott and I wander off. Scott says, what time do we need to be back for the tour? Behind the scenes of this, Scott said later on, I didn't want to say what time because I didn't want to influence your answer. I wanted to make sure that whatever you responded was independent of what I thought was the answer.
Yeah.
So Scott says, what time do we need to be back? I said 2:30. He said, that's what I thought as well. Sweet. We need to be back at 2:30. We walk back, turn up there at the meeting spot at 2:30. No one's there.
Yep.
I text George to say, hey, we're at dock number 3. Where is everybody? Are we at the right place? He messages back to say, you're at the right place. You're at the wrong fucking time. You idiots. You should have been there at 10 to 2. So somehow we both independently got the incorrect time. Not only just an incorrect time, the same incorrect
time. Yeah. Who knows how we did that?
Yeah. But as it turned out, we then went, oh, fuck, we're stuck here for 2.5 hours or something. We'll go for a wander. So we went for a wander and we seemed to stumble into the residential kind of part of town that didn't have any tourists. It seemed to be in the middle of some kind of modern art festival. So we ended up seeing 3 kind of modern art exhibitions. Stopped at a local little cafe, drank grappa, talked to the guy who worked there, listened to the chef and waiter in the cafe next door arguing and threatening to kill each other. Saw, which is kind of what summed it up for Venice for me. Saw a building kind of on the canal, and on the third floor, woman sitting in the windowsill with the sun on her, reading a book. So it was kind of the perfect thing of, yeah, we made a mistake by getting the time wrong, but it actually turned out far, far better than it would have had we.
Yeah, and particularly when we've actually found out, we met up with everybody again. When we asked them how did the tour go, and it was nothing to do with glass blowing, which everyone seemed to think it was. I can't even remember what it was, but something we wouldn't have wanted to do.
Okay.
And they all said it was boring.
Yeah.
So we were far better off just getting our times wrong. That's the part what I remember about Venice is A, how much I hated the touristy part of Venice, and B, how much better the part was that we saw when we weren't with everybody.
That was a situation where it actually made me think about how, kind of depending on your background and who you hang around with. So this is kind of vaguely tying into subjective versus biological age.
Yep.
Where we've talked about previously of people can be the same age, but depending on what your life is at that time, you react to things or think differently. For those people who are going, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Let me explain. So for example, you can have two people who are 60 years old, one who lives in St Kilda in Victoria, gets to see lots of different people in different walks of life, kind of gets out and about and goes to cafes and blah, 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 has a very different attitude towards things than the person who's been married for 30 years, living in the suburbs in Sydney, and just has a very small group of friends that just essentially reinforce their beliefs.
Yeah, they don't get any kind of other input.
And for those people who are going, you're a judgmental prick. Yeah, probably, yes. But
yes.
You didn't have to agree with that. It was more of a hypothetical. The reason that I feel comfortable saying that is because I've been both of those people.
Yeah, and as have I.
So I can definitely say that had it been in my previous lifestyle, that I would have spent all of my time going, oh, fucking hell, we missed the fucking tour. This is fucking shit.
Yeah.
But having a different approach towards things. Maybe not a grumpy old man. It was a, let's see what happens, and this could be interesting.
Fair enough. And we'll be back after the break. Okay, so we're going to start off by looking at the bucket list aspect of the trip, because we did an episode about bucket lists and we talked about things that should be on a bucket list. And definitely for me, I ticked off a lot of things on the bucket list. As Stonehenge, Oxford, Pompeii, all the stuff in Rome, Colosseum, the Forum, all that kind of stuff. The Louvre, or as George wanted to pronounce it, the Louvre. Although, in retrospect, I wonder whether he was saying that for the Americans who thought that was how you pronounced it. And I went to a Premier League soccer game, which I also was part of my bucket list kind of stuff. Having done that and been able to fulfill that kind of ambition, it did give me a sense of closure on those things. I don't have to see them again. I might go back to Europe and see some other things again, but I don't have to. And I feel good about that. You kind of came along for the ride on this, but in our bucket list episode, you said that you had no travel on your bucket list. So how did it make you feel? Did it make you want to retroactively add these things to your bucket list? Or...
Well, interestingly, thanks to the wonderful world of Facebook algorithms and spying Google homes, one of the things that popped up on my Facebook feed was people talking about how you should have retrospective or retroactive bucket lists.
Right.
So not just what am I going to do, but what have I done or what did I see? So yes, it did. There was a few things that fell into the retrospective, retroactive. I don't know which is the right one.
Yeah.
Bucket list. Probably Rome, because it was kind of wasn't anywhere that I was going, oh gosh, I can't wait to go there and see this the same way that you were.
Yeah.
It was it was, oh yeah, this will be good and it'll be interesting, and my big thing was looking. It's like, oh, where's the nearest craft beer pub that has a good bourbon barrel-aged stout? But yeah, Rome was awesome with all the old shit that was there. Like the idea of standing around in areas and going, this was built before Jesus was born, hypothetically. Like, it was insane to go that people could build these things to this scale back then.
Yeah. Or even weird things like, and I didn't even know this existed till I went there, but there's the spot in the forum where they say that they burned Caesar's body.
Mm.
And there's people still put flowers there every day, apparently.
Oh, right.
But I'm like, wow. I mean, maybe it's not the spot, man. Who knows if it actually is? But they claim it's a spot. And I mean, maybe there's a reason they claim it. But yeah, to me, that was like, whoa, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So,
and Pompeii as well. Pompeii
yeah.
was because it was the concept of something that old that's still kicking around.
The other thing I would say, though, and this is not bucket list, but it was kind of in a weird way a bucket list, was when in Rome, I did those things I needed to do. But I felt the need to do a couple of things that I didn't really care about, but I felt that if I didn't do them, I'd be looked down upon, which was going to the Trevi Fountain.
And picking up those guys.
Yeah, that was the thing. and going to the Spanish Steps. Now, both those things I didn't give a crap about, but I felt like if I didn't go there, that I would either someone would mock me for it, or later on I'd go, damn it, I wish I'd done that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I forced myself, and we went for quite a long walk on that really rainy day. It was pissing down on the Forum, pissing down at the Colosseum, and then we still walked into town and saw the Trevi Fountain and the Pantheon, which I did want to see. That was on the bucket list, but also the Spanish Steps.
It's similar to my attitude towards going to the red light district in Amsterdam, which I didn't really want to do, but forced myself because I knew that people would say, "Did you do the red light district in Amsterdam?" Narrator: he did not force himself to go to the red light district.
I was prepared to let you get away with that. Now, the next one is I want to talk about is it actually harks back to our last episode, Death: The Final Frontier, Part 1.
Is that when you killed the homeless guy?
No.
Right. Oh, sorry, I wasn't supposed to talk about that.
I think you've forgotten. What happens on tour stays on tour. Now, I think in that last episode when we were talking about death, probably aired some of my fear of death, or fear of flying due to the potential for death, and just generally talked about death in a like the whole existential dread of nearing your demise. Now, part of that was a fear of flying, and on the trip over, because I was we went over on separate flights, and I was flying from Sydney to Seoul, and I was asleep, or I'd say probably half asleep, but I'm pretty much asleep, and I'm lying there, sitting there, and I must have been dreaming because this didn't happen in real life, but I felt the plane go into a steep dive.
Right.
And I'm sitting there with my eyes closed as this plane was plummeting towards the earth, and I didn't panic. I just thought, oh, well, this is it then. And then I opened my eyes and realized that the plane wasn't plummeting. It was just carrying on its merry way straight along. And I didn't wake up screaming. No, I was quite calm, just sitting there.
Oh, okay.
And I was surprised at my attitude. I'm thinking, well, that's a definite change, because I would have thought that dream on a plane would have possibly had me have a panic attack. But it was the exact opposite. The other thing for me about death, there were two other incidents. One of them was when we were in Amsterdam, and you didn't do this. I think you just needed a break from me, I think.
Was this when you had the heroin?
No.
No. Oh, was it when I had heroin?
that would be more like it. Now I went to see this museum called Body Worlds in Amsterdam. Body Worlds is a real museum that displays actual human bodies that have been plasticized and then put in really weird positions and stripped of their flesh and stuff. There are quite a lot of penises, to be honest, more than I wanted to see.
Well, any more than one.
Yeah. It was invented by Dr. Gunther von Hagens, who invented the process of plastination at the University of Heidelberg. And the plastination is the process where real human bodies are preserved for scientific research and medical education. Well, now they're also used
for entertainment.
Entertainment, as the case may be. And there I was wandering around dead people.
Sorry, can I just finish that story with? Are you aware how horrific it is to be casually sitting in a bar, having a beer, and then receiving a picture SMS that contains 14 delaminated dead bodies in various activities, from playing the saxophone to having sex,
well,
unannounced. That makes it come with a, by the way, just about to send you some horror pictures.
Spoiler alert.
There's some people who in Amsterdam are probably now going, hey, remember when we were in that bar and that guy just started going, oh, what the fuck?
Well, I nearly got my comeuppance the next day because I nearly joined those dead bodies because...
Yeah, define irony.
Yeah, managed to walk in front of a bus and came within probably 2 meters of being hit by the said bus.
And what was it that you said to your nephew just before you got hit by the bus?
Well, I wasn't hit by the bus. I was nearly hit by the bus. And I said to my nephew, it was really great to see you after all these years. I hope this isn't the last time. Then I stepped in front of a bus.
I was in the distance and saw somebody nearly get hit by a bus and went, fuck, I wonder what happened there. And then found out it was you.
Now, in my defense of walking in front of a bus, there were two mitigating circumstances. The first was, it was a crossing. Okay, now in Australia, if there's a crossing a busy road, then there's one light that stops traffic going both directions and the people cross from one side to the other side in one go. Okay, so I'm standing on the footpath and I see the light on the other side of the road go green. And so I step out. But of course, that was a green light for the people who are in the median strip to cross over to the other side. I was on the wrong half of the road to respond to that light. And it was weird because I'd come so close to getting hit by a bus, and yet I didn't sort of freak out. I wasn't scared. I was pissed off. That was a green light. What the fuck were they doing? What a stupid method of pedestrian safety. My nephew, on the other hand, was quite traumatized by the whole incident. He had one job to keep his uncle alive, and he nearly failed. While I was away, there were literally 3 cases where I was confronted with death. One, I was indignant and angry. The second, I was blasé as I walked past all the dead people on display. And the third one was like, oh, yes, meh, I'm going to die. Oh, well, that's all right. Don't care. So there you go. Death, the final frontier. I haven't conquered death, but I may have conquered my existential dread of death.
Uh-huh. You've also, those 3 reactions also describe any interaction we have talking about the podcast before we start recording.
I might let you talk about this one because one of our more popular episodes, surprising when you look at downloads, is the Getting Away from It All episode, where you started with talking about when you were getting away and going to the houseboat down in South Australia. So we were kind of getting away from it all here too. And so, no, I mean, for me, it wasn't a getaway. For me, it was a bucket list journey. Okay. But I think for you, it might have been more of a holiday, more of a getting away from like everyday life. So was it, did that work? Did it work as a getaway for you?
That's a very something question.
I can tell you what happened for me.
You could, but you asked me. So.
Well, I asked you. Well, I'll give you some time to think about it. Okay, because for me, it definitely wasn't a getaway in that sense. It was, I had a plan to see as much as I possibly could. And but we were together for what, 14, 15 days? And then I was in London for 4 days before you arrived. And then I was in London for another 10 or 12 days after you left. But I pushed myself to the limit for 5 weeks. And when I came back, I was exhausted. Now, some of that I could put down to jet lag because I didn't sleep for pretty much 48 hours on. And it took me at least 4 weeks to get over it.
Wow.
But I also think some of it was exhaustion because I was so exhausted after pushing myself so hard, I didn't feel like I could waste a day. And then I was tired at the end because of so I was destroyed.
Because you're only used to, like, being a teacher, you're only used to being out and about for 15, 20 minutes at a time.
Hardy ha. But anyway, so for me, it was definitely not a getaway. It was almost like it was an adventure, I suppose. I was going to say it was like a job, but it wasn't. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed it. It wasn't a laying by the beach holiday. It was go, go, go. It was full on.
Yes.
And it didn't relax me in any way.
Yes. No, it was, from that perspective, it definitely wasn't it definitely wasn't the same as the going and not wearing pants on a houseboat in
Thank God you wore pants.
South Australia.
But what I would say, I suppose, it wasn't a relaxing getting away from it all, but it was probably a circuit breaker for me. It got me away from some of the things I was doing here. Like I'd been doing some unsuccessful internet dating,
cocaine.
And I'd been...
Sorry? Crack cocaine.
Crack cocaine. No, I wasn't doing crack cocaine. But just work and just... I think I've been doing the same thing for a very long time. Just everyday life, same kind of thing. So to take myself out of that for 5 weeks, that's probably a kind of getting away from it all.
Yeah, fair. It was, I think you're kind of right on the saying it's a job because I guess it depends on what your definition of getting away from it is. Like my idea of getting away from it all is just doing nothing. So because every day was doing something, and very much like you say, I don't want to waste a day.
Yeah,
like I could. So it's similar to when I went away recently to Singapore. It was just like 1 billion degrees or 1 billion% humidity, and so you'd walk out. It was like walking into an upright bath to go outside.
Yeah.
So I'd sit in the hotel room where it was kind of comfortable, but I'm fucking wasting my time sitting here.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be, and I was getting more anxiety being comfortable than I was going out and wandering around and sweating to death.
So another episode we did was about memory.
Did we?
Yeah, we did memory, the forgotten episode. Sorry. Duh. How silly I am.
What did we talk about in that one?
Anyway, what I would say for me is I'd never been to Europe before, but I had been to the UK 43 years ago.
Right.
So and there were quite a few things I saw that I saw again this time around, and my recollection was not good.
Yeah.
Some things were quite good, and other ones were like, this doesn't look anything like I remember it. Like I went to Greenwich for the place where there's the Greenwich Maritime Museum, and they had keep Greenwich Mean Time and all that.
Like they keep it in like a box or something. They let it out every week or so. Let it wander around the yard, get a little bit of sun.
Yeah, that's why it's mean.
That's the kind of comedy that listeners are tuning in for.
But so I didn't recall that at all. I remember going there and I remember enjoying it. I remember thinking I'd like to go back there because I remember enjoying that. And I got there and it was like, oh, this doesn't seem anything like what I remember seeing previously. Now, maybe they'd done renovations or whatever, but a lot of it looked pretty old.
Well, at least 43 years older than the last time.
So there was that. Buckingham Palace was exactly the same as I thought. In fact, it maybe even looked smaller than I remember it.
Well, you were younger then, so you were small.
But I remember being unimpressed, and I was unimpressed this time as well.
I've travelled 24 hours to be unimpressed. I'll wait until I'm 50 and I'll go back and I'll be unimpressed again.
The other thing I noticed was when I went there as a kid, because I'd never been anywhere else in the world, all I focused on were the differences.
Right.
Different people on TV. There's the water tastes different. Like the different brands of things.
You're a whiner.
But I was focusing on that kind of stuff. This time, all I could focus on was the similarities.
It's still a whiner, just in different end of the spectrum.
No, it wasn't whining. I really enjoyed it. It actually reminded me a lot of Australia.
I had a similar thing from a whiner point of view, is that a lot of it I was going, hey, it's just like home. So like I was disappointed from a food point of view.
Right.
Because they kept going we'll have a pizza in Rome, or we'll have a gelato in Venice. We'll have a penguin in I don't know what. And I was like, a Rome pizza. Oh, here we go. It tastes like pizza.
Yeah.
And it was like everywhere was kind of the same. It was like, it tastes like I could have picked this up at home.
I reckon if you'd gone overseas 40 years ago, it would have been way different. We didn't have the same kind of food here then.
Yeah, yeah.
There wouldn't have been authentic pizzas. There'd have been Pizza Hut at best.
Are you suggesting Pizza Hut's not authentic pizza?
Yes. I'm going to go that far and say that.
What's wrong with you? I'm prepared to go on record to say that 1990s to early 2000s thick crust meat lovers pizza, where you would go into Pizza Hut and you could get the all you could eat thing on a Tuesday, where they'd bring out to the buffet area, they'd bring out the pizza and you could just keep gorging yourself and they'd just keep bringing it. Is the best pizza ever. I'm prepared to go on record for that. If I die, I'm hoping that one of the things in heaven is a 1997 all-you-can-eat Pizza Hut buffet.
So going back to the idea of your thing of food. Now, I think we're very spoiled now in Australia, where we get a lot of things we get a lot of immigrants who brought their cuisines with them. And we get access to a lot of really good food, which we never had before. And I think if you travelled overseas 50 years ago or 40 years ago, you'd have had your mind blown a bit more than we had it blown this time, because, there's so many, authentic Italian pizza places you can go to and you would just get the same kind of thing. So I don't think it's as amazing as it might have been. I think I remember my sister saying they went overseas back in the early 70s, and they were just like, they would have had their absolute mind blown by the food and everything. It was so different. This is when we were having meat 3 veg for dinner and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
I remember when when you and I went to the States, it was kind of being amazed by the food.
Yes,
there.
That was quantities,
and also taste as well. Because we didn't have back then. Back in those days, we didn't have we only just had McDonald's. We didn't have Burger King or Carl's Jr. or Wendy's or any of those things. So all of that fast food stuff was different. All of there was a lot of things that we didn't have here.
We didn't have McDonald's breakfast back then.
Oh yeah,
back then. And I remember having my first McMuffin, a sausage McMuffin, and thinking the sausage was spicy.
It's very Aussie of you. Actually, I can remember, now that you've said that, I can remember when we stopped at McDonald's and I walked in to order and ordered a Big Mac and a whatever. And they went, "We're serving breakfast, sir." They didn't say it in that voice because I don't know what that was, but and I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? I'm having a Big Mac for breakfast, thank you. Yeah, which was the first time that I encountered the McDonald's breakfast, and was I can't remember what I ordered or anything about it, but just the fact that the guy was so pissed off that I was trying to order something and it was breakfast time.
We'll be back after a break for some healthy McDonald's breakfast. As I say, Jade, we better record your ad for your new book.
Yes, my new book that came out months ago called Colin Doesn't Call the Help Desk.
So what are you going to do?
So what I thought I'd do is I thought I'd do a reading.
Oh, that's all highfalutin.
Yes, well, that's what proper authors do. They do readings.
Readings?
Yeah.
Like Charles Dickens.
Hear ye, hear ye. Come all ghosts
I
to...
don't think that's not Dickens.
Okay.
Tis a far, far better thing. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. All those
It
things.
sounds pretty indecisive.
Well, it's sort of the Schrodinger's cat of authors.
I like to see that in a billboard. Dickens' Tale of Two Cities, the Schrodinger's cat of writers. So, well, no, I was just Dickens around.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Jokes in the book are funnier than that.
So how'd you come up with this this novel idea of reading your novel?
Whoa, you're on a roll tonight. I'd like to say that it was something I sat down and thought through and planned very, very carefully. It was more around the fact that when I remembered that we were recording an ad, I thought, oh, fuck, what was the book about? So I pulled it out and then went, oh, no, I'm supposed to be getting ready for the ad. Put it back, got the book out, started having a look through it, and went, actually, this isn't too bad. Why don't I allow the listeners to experience the joy of Colin Doesn't Call the Help Desk? And it also means I don't have to put any effort into coming up with something new.
Fair enough. You're not going to read the whole bloody thing, are you?
Yeah, Andy Kaufman style. To set up the scene, because I'm not starting from the beginning. I've just picked a spot in the middle. So this is from A Company Is Only As Good As Its People. It's essentially around the results of the annual culture survey. The scene is Bob's called the team into a meeting room to say, I've got the results of the anonymous culture survey. I want everyone to tell me which comments they made. There's been a bit of conversation around, I don't think you understand what anonymous means. Anyway, it's not about that, Bob says. It's about having the trust that my team feel they can come to speak to me about any issues they have. He holds his arms wide. Everyone knows my door is always open. You don't have an office, Gina says. I want to be able to create an open and respectful conversation, he says, ignoring her. Not have to hide behind, he lifts the folder, some faceless survey. It's not faceless, Vanessa says. It's anonymous. Just to make sure I'm on the same page as you, Graham chimes in, you're encouraging open and transparent conversation with your team by pressuring us to own up to the comments we made in an anonymous survey. You're making it sound worse than it is, Bob huffs. I'm not pressuring anyone. I simply believe that if someone has something to say, they should feel that they can come and speak to me about it. Seems pretty clear they can't, Graham folds his arms. Let's not get into the weeds on this, Bob says quickly and moves on to the next section. Now, the overall comments have been categorised by sentiment into positives and, well, they call them negatives, but that makes them sound so negative. He looks around the table. I prefer to see them as opportunities for the open and transparent conversation I constantly encourage. He scrolls forward to a picture of a scale titled positive and negative. On each side of the scale are text boxes containing a selection of comments from the survey. That looks pretty good, boss, Colin says, pointing at the heavily weighted positive side. That one's mine, he says. My manager is helpful and supportive. Bob smiles. Well, thank you for that comment, Colin, and for your transparency. You see, he says to the others, it's good to know how Colin feels about our working relationship. If he hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known that comment was from him because, he pauses for effect, it's anonymous. He scrunches his face into an I told you so look, which is why I also don't know who made that comment on the other side. My manager is an idiot. Oh, yeah, that was probably me, Graham says. Although, might have been some other people too. Bob sits back and stares blankly at him. Oh, well, thank you so much for your transparency, Graham, by writing that in an anonymous survey, he sneers. What? Graham holds out his hands innocently. I say that all the time. Anyway, let's move on. The next one, my manager is friendly and challenges me to perform to my highest standards. That's mine too, Colin smiles. I thought these were supposed to be positive comments. Alfred takes off his glasses, looks closely at the lenses and puts them back on. What does it say? My manager is constantly screwing me over when I ask for a pay rise. Thanks for nothing. Oh, that one, Gina points to the screen. My manager is great at taking credit for my work. I saw this in my last job, George says. The survey program didn't understand sarcasm, so anytime it found a word like thanks or great, it thought it was a positive. Or brilliant, Graham says, pointing to the next comment, as in my manager is brilliant at pretending he's working when he's actually off getting himself a donut. That's not true, Bob says indignantly. I know, Gina agrees. You're terrible at doing that. My manager is an imbecile, Vanessa whistles. Whew, that escalated quickly. The end.
Oh, very good.
But it's not the end. It's just the end of the bit that I'm reading.
A question without notice. Are you planning to do a audio?
I am planning to do an audiobook. I don't know. I've got to find somebody to do it, though. I'm not going to do it because, as you would have identified from that short excerpt, I forget what the voices are in between doing them. So if I do it, it'll sound as though it's got a cast of about 400 people in it and be very hard to follow. So it's not currently available on audio back, but it is available in paperback and Kindle back and, of course, hardback.
Okay. I'd like to have thought of a back that I could have thrown in there, but I really can't think of any new ones. We've just about run out of hunchbacks, razorbacks, all those kinds of
I think we've done Nickelback.
Nickelback. Oh, of course, Nickelback. Yeah. Hasselback. Hasselback. I think I was looking through my recipe book and there's Hasselback potatoes.
Oh.
Not well enough known to make a joke of, though, but there you go.
I thought it was something that something you did when somebody's bothering you.
I thought it was somebody who starred in movies or TV shows about people running slowly down the beach with red cozies.
It's the protest sign if they remake Knight Rider.
we want Hasselback.
Given that doesn't quite work. Colin doesn't call the help desk. Book 2 in the Colin Calls the Help Desk series, available on all good Amazon bookstores.
On them? In them?
In them? I don't know. Actually, just quickly, in relation to food, one of the things that we did eat in Pompeii, which should have been, in my mind, when they said you can get a deep fried pizza, which is exactly as what it says. It's a pizza that's covered in batter and deep fried.
Sounds like a Scottish thing.
Well, yeah, because in Scotland they deep fry everything.
Yeah.
So my immediate response was, would you like a deep fried pizza? Fuck yes. And it was absolutely shit.
Oh, okay. I didn't have the deep fried pizza. When did you have that?
Yes, you did. I don't have a photo of you eating it, but I have a photo of 2 deep fried pizzas on the table in front of us.
Oh, that's
so when we came out of Pompeii and because we had the gelato as well before we went. So we came out of the tour, had a wander.
Yeah.
And then there was all the market stalls.
Oh, yes. Sorry, that was terrible. That was shocking. That was so bad I forgot about it.
You wiped it from your memory.
That was terrible shit. That's the worst food I've ever eaten.
Yeah. So from that perspective, the food was different.
Now, one of the things we've banged on about for this entire series of podcasts was what makes old. And I think the microcosm of people on our bus tour were a pretty good indication of some of the things that make old. Because I would say we're old, but we don't present. We may outwardly present as old. I don't know. Some people tend to think, but I think you've been told you look younger than your age. I get people telling me they didn't think I was my age. But
I think mine's more based on my my emotional maturity. But carry on.
Possibly mine too. But a lot of the people who again, presented at about our age on the tour, were really old farts.
Mm.
So it was, they may have been exactly the same age as us. They may have been slightly older, but they had very different outlook on the world.
I thought a good example of that was when we were in Paris. I don't know. Here's CJ's view of the world. We're in some foreign city that all I know is that it's where they filmed John Wick 4.
Okay, that was in Paris. That was going up the to see Sacré-Cœur.
I'm a man of the world.
Near Montmartre.
Right. Everybody else on the tour is going, wow, look at that amazing cathedral on the top of the hill. I'm going, and they're the stairs that they're in John Wick 4. So, I thought this was a good indication of biological versus subjective age. There's a cable car thing that goes up the hill next to the stairs to take you up to the Sacre Bleu or whatever it is.
Yeah, Sacre Bleu. Close enough.
Yeah, I'm sure all of these things are coming off as casually racist, but they're not intended to. So instead of catching the cable car down, I said to George, I'm going down the stairs. I'm never going to get another chance to go down the John Wick stairs. I gotta walk down the stairs. I say this to George. There's 3 people there who go, you're going down the stairs? What?
What?
You're going down the stairs? Whoa, I can't believe you go. Whoa. Well, yeah, it's bold of you to go down the whoa. It was like, I'm not going up the stairs. If I was going up the stairs, maybe it's a different story, but even then, that's not that much of a thing. And I'm not like, it's not like all the people who attacked John Wick aren't on the stairs. I don't have to deal with that to get down. It's just, I'm just walking downstairs. And they were like, whoa. And then when we got to the bottom and I saw them and they're like, oh, are you okay? How did you go?
Didn't we beat them down the stairs?
Yeah.
They came down and like some kind of a gondola thing, and we walked down.
Yeah. I think I walked down. I'd gone to a souvenir shop and bought a T-shirt and come back before they'd been arrived at the bottom. Like, oh wow, are you okay? Do you need a rest? Or maybe you need a nap after coming down all those stairs. Fucking hell.
It's insane.
I know I look like a fat fuck, and I've been living on protein bars and alcohol since I've been on the tour, but prior to that as well. But surely I don't look that unhealthy. Yeah, so that was a big one for me.
There is one thing that happened on the tour that I thought was pretty funny, only because it dated myself and George.
I didn't know you and George dated.
So we were coming out to get on the bus in Lucerne on the morning we were going to go off to climb Mount Stanzerhorn. And as we were walking to the bus, both George and I looked down, and on the ground was an empty blister pack that was, if you were a man of a certain age, you immediately recognized as being Viagra. It was an empty Viagra blister pack. George looked at me and said, that guy had a good night. And I think that sort of, as far as aging goes, I think that probably dates us both. Can you think of any other examples?
Like Cruella, when she did I'm not one to complain, and we both went, but at the same time. So there was quite a bit of that sort of stuff going on, of people whinging about things, and not like, don't get me wrong, I'm in the hall of whinging fame, I'm pretty high up there, but like just lots of everything was, it's like, oh, why are we doing this? And why are we waiting around so long? And this is taking too long. Why is this happening again?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that sort of,
Well, I think there was definitely a point where Cruella was trying to enlist people in to complain about George.
Yeah.
I think she sort of came to us at one point, and we were like, "But we like George." Not quite not quite like that, but basically, fuck off.
So there's a couple of instances where George would explain something, and then there would be a I don't understand. So there was one thing that I made a note of was when he said he gave people his phone number.
Yeah.
And there was quite a lot of consternation around number. What's the number that goes? This is the area code for. Do we need to use the area code for the country code? And then how does the thing work? And there was a lot of discussion around. I can't get it to work. It doesn't make any sense. Which then led to it's too hard. This is ridiculous. I won't need his phone number anyway. I'm not going to bother. And then of course needed his phone number.
Yeah.
And then next time I saw them was complaining because they couldn't get in touch with him because they didn't have his phone number. Like, weren't you the person who was complaining it was too hard to do the phone number beforehand? And it's a fucking phone number.
I believe you were.
Yeah, so there's a kind of a bit of that sort of stuff going on. My favourite was the, which is, I'm not sure if it's an age thing. It's possibly less of an age thing, more of a racist thing, I think. But so for listeners, it was like a United Nations of people on the bus.
Or disunited nations.
And so people from similar, like from the same country who didn't know each other, tended to flock together, as birds from the same country do. Like the old saying goes, birds from the same country hang out in the same places. Or something like that.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. So they would form their own little groups and would talk to each other. And
so the Americans hung out with the Americans. The people from, like, I mean, even us with the people from New Zealand, we tended to talk to them more.
Yeah. Or there was a couple of people from Australia, and
there's the Hawaiian group.
Yeah.
They were. I thought they were all together, but they weren't.
Yeah, me too. So they were. So speaking of segueing from the Hawaiian group, we were having breakfast, I think, at the kind of Australia, New Zealand, at the Anzac table.
Yes.
And behind us was the Hawaiian table, who were talking in what I assume is Hawaiian.
I had the impression that they may have been from a Filipino background.
Oh, okay.
And they might have been speaking Tagalog, but I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the purpose of the story, they weren't speaking English, which is perfectly fine because they were talking amongst themselves.
Yes. Yes, they weren't meant to be talking to us.
No, they were in fact at a different table.
Yes.
A distance from.
Having their own conversation.
Completely apart from us. Except for the people on our table who, when that table burst into laughter, somebody at our table went, "Oh, maybe if we were talking English, we could laugh too."
Well, that guy was there.
Or,
well, you could just mind your own fucking business.
Had it been that sounded like it was a really funny joke. I wish I knew what it was.
Yeah.
It would be a different story, but it wasn't. So thinking about it, I'm not sure whether that was an age. I think that was probably more of a racist thing than an ageist thing.
But that guy and his wife, though, they were the biggest schlemiels ever.
Yes.
They were just like everything bad happened to them.
Yeah.
And they had the biggest whingers. They were the biggest whingers on the tour. I thought the Americans would have been, but no, it was the Australian couple.
Yeah.
They were shocking.
Allegedly. Not like they're ever going to listen to this.
Yeah. Like they couldn't get the iPad to download it. Because, won't download.
Maybe if the iPad was in English, it'd be all right.
Yeah, that wasn't great. I mean, even those same cultural groupings didn't bring together people of the same mindset. Like the New Zealand couple were fine. They were quite nice, and I got on well with them.
Yeah.
But going back to what makes old, I think what makes old are kind of attitudes like that. Those kind of outdated attitudes.
Yes.
I flatter myself that I don't hold anything like that kind of attitude. Although, and I will be quite frank here, in the past I would have made some terrible jokes and used accents I shouldn't have and all those kind of things in the past. But I also know that in retrospect it wasn't great then. It wasn't like they were the good old days and we could say whatever we liked, and it was like, no, But I think people with that kind of mindset do think
Yeah.
that literally, people say you can't do that. And it was funny to do that. And like, well, if you're making fun of someone's accent, that's not funny. That's racist.
And also I think the attitude of, which again is not necessarily an age-related thing, but the attitude of, why aren't you speaking English?
Yeah, that's shocking.
Because I think that's a demographic thing and a cultural thing. Now, the only other thing that I will say about age,
Yes,
and subjective age, is that not only can you appear older than you are, you can also appear younger
right.
than you are. So, for listeners' sake, when Scott gets tired, he essentially turns into a toddler. So, I want to do that now. This isn't fair. I'm going to do this. And so he gets quite grumpy and annoyed.
CJ has a valid point to make here, but as I'm editing this, and I'm a petulant child, I'm not going to let him make it. Okay, so probably of the bucket list items that I ticked off on the trip, I think the one I liked the most. So it was Stonehenge. That was my favourite bucket list item. And I really appreciated seeing it at sunset and seeing it how the Druids might have seen it. Or, what the hell are you doing, CJ?
Subliminal advertising. I'm just getting subliminal stuff to get people to rate us 5 stars.
Anyway, back to Stonehenge. Yeah, I went there at sunset. It was amazing.
Great descriptions.
There was absolutely no subliminal advertising at Stonehenge.
So, what's your takeaway from this, Scott?
So my takeaway is I'm pretty impressed that we survived. I did get an insight into age.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't go on the tour to look for an insight into age, but I think when you reflect on it the way we have, I think the main takeaway is to have a youthful outlook and not be an old fart. That way you can appreciate things much more. What's your takeaway, CJ?
I think probably my key takeaway was, it was like all the people on the tour was almost like that thing of, you're either like an inspiration or a warning. So while obviously we focused on particular people who made the most amusing stories, because nobody's going to listen to a podcast episode where we're just going, oh, do you remember Jim? Oh, he was so nice. Yes, he was friendly and happy all the time, and he was so helpful. Nobody cares about that. So there were people on there that I went, oh, okay, this is, you're even a little bit older than I am, but you're still pretty cool, and I'd be happy to be like that when I'm your age. So, like, I think George was like older than he appeared to be. But then there was other people that I looked at and went, holy fuck, I would hate to turn into that. Well, probably at any age, but I could kind of see how easy it would be to go down that path to being, this is the way things should be, and if anything's slightly out of what my expectations were and what I'm used to and what my comfort zone is.
Yeah.
And one of the things that concerns me about aging is that the older you get, your comfort zone, I think, becomes smaller. Because I noticed that with my dad. It was like my dad was afraid of nothing, but as he got older, his comfort zone became less and less. You have less ability, I think, to deal with things that are outside of your comfort zone. And that's something that worries me more than most things.
Sounds like you're describing me on the trip.
Only a couple of times. Like, one of my greatest fears is to be the person who goes, oh, no, I don't want to do that. That's a bit, I don't think I'd feel comfortable doing that. Like, given the opportunity to do something, I want to be the person who says, yeah, cool, all right, let's do that. Not, oh, I don't think that's a good idea.
You can be out of touch and cautious at any age, though. I know young people at work who are absolutely paranoid about AI and can't do anything with it at all, whereas I'm like at least twice their age and I'm quite okay with it. But I've been really cautious my whole life. But everything changed a couple of years ago when I just said, screw this, I'm going to say yes to things and let's see what happens. And it's changed my life.
Yeah, well, wish you'd told me that at the time. I wouldn't follow your advice quite so specifically. Just say yes to everything. That sounds like a good idea. I'll try that.
All jokes aside, I think that has given me some ability to stay relevant when, if I'd stayed the way I was, I'd have been on my way to being a terrible old fart. Because as you get to the point where you can no longer accept change, the world starts to pass you by because you can't make the changes you need to make to stay relevant.
And I think you probably hit the nail on the head. It's not necessarily biologically age related to have that attitude, because you were saying there's people that are younger than you that struggle with things like AI. So it's comes back more to attitude. You could be any age biologically, but then the way that you deal with things and deal with change can kind of age you subjectively or emotionally or mentally.
I think that was definitely the case for a lot of the people on that tour. So it's probably a good place to finally lay it to rest. Say goodnight, CJ.
Good night, CJ.
Is that what I say?
Yes. I like the fact that that's probably one of the first times that you've got it right, because it's been so long since we've done it. And you're still questioning yourself.
We done?
Fuck, I hope so.